Hello everybody and welcome to my studio. My name is Lonna and I am an acrylic artist. Thank you so much for stopping by to paint with me today. We're going to be painting a adorable Christmas project today. It is on one of my surfaces that I sell on my website. It's my round ornament surface plaque. It's a larger piece than a regular little ornament, and I really hope you're going to enjoy this. Let's take a look at it. Here it is. I've titled this one The Beauty of Christmas. I really want you guys to see the bling that I put on there, the gold and then the silver on the topper there. So much fun, so much fun. I have created a stencil for this design that has the ornament shape. It has the birds, a 2-layer for the birds, so it gets you the light color and the dark color, and then you just have to do a little bit of blending in there. It's got snowflakes on it, it's got words, that stencil for this is available on my website. It is titled Merry and Bright. But this is so much fun. Look at that. Oh my gosh, so stinking adorable. I did not add snow onto my limbs here, but you could certainly do that. I want it to be like the snow is just starting to fall. So we have these big fluffy snowflakes coming around. And this one is I just love it. I just think that it turned out exceptionally well, and it's one of my favorite Christmas designs that I have created. The Beauty of Christmas is what I've titled it. This is my large round plaque, ornament plaque, and they're available on my website, lonnalamb.com. So we are going to be painting with Deco Art Americana acrylic paints. So let's grab our paints and supplies and let's paint this so adorable Christmas ornament and get ready for Christmas. So we're going to start on this surface. I've already applied a coat of multi-purpose sealer with a dampened 2-inch foam roller. I'm going to use the same foam roller. I didn't even wash it out. I just squeezed out any excess multi-purpose sealer that was on it and loaded up my brush. I let my multi-purpose sealer dry. Now you can mix it in with your base coat, and then your second coat can just be straight paint. That saves you a step, but I really like it directly on the wood so that I can get a nice adhesion of my paint onto that. Okay, so I'm going to let this coat dry. I may not need a second coat on here. I'm going to let it dry and see, because this first coat covered really well. We used Williamsburg Blue, so we'll get it dry. If I need to apply a second coat, I will do that off camera, but I'll tell you when I come back, and then we'll go from here. Alright, so I did go ahead and apply a second coat. I didn't necessarily need it. I felt like it had good coverage, but I went ahead just in case there was some spots that didn't cover well. Gave it a light sanding just with a brown paper bag. Now we're going to spatter on some white paint. So I've got some white paint. We're going to make some little snow stuff in the background here. So I'm going to load a brush. Now I'm using a rake brush, but you can do this with any kind of brush. It doesn't have to be a rake brush. And I'm going to put some water into my white paint and thin it down to not quite inky consistency. I want my spatters to show up. I don't want them to fade into the background. And this is the background part, but we still want to see it when our project is done. And so I'm just tapping on another large handled brush, or you could use a palette knife. And even though we're going to have limbs and things coming over here, just in case, we want to make sure that we have some snow. I want a little bit more bigger flakes here. or bigger drops. Now we have to let this dry completely before we move on. So that's quite a bit of spattering on there, but this will all fade into the background. So now before everything dries, I'm going to take a baby wipe, and I want to wipe off up here on my topper because I don't want the drops to be up here where I'm going to be painting. So I'm just going to remove those as best I can. And now is the opportunity to go ahead, if you've spattered anywhere, to clean it off of your tabletop. And this is the one reason why I don't particularly like spattering, because it goes every place. So take your time, clean it up while all this dries. And then when this gets dry, we're going to come back and start making some beautiful stuff on top of this. Okay, my snowdrops, or whatever they are, flakes background is dry. So we're going to paint our topper in and get it just base coated in and out of the way. Now I'm just going to mix some black and some white. But if you don't want to mix your paint, then you can just grab gray sky. Or slate gray. Any of those grays will be fine. You're just mixing a light to medium gray color, so whatever you mix will be just fine. Spritzing the edge of my palette with water. That's my clean water that I like to use while I'm painting. And so I've got a 12 flat here. I'm just going to grab a little bit of black and some white and mix me up a light to medium gray. I'm just going to keep mixing a little bit here because I want to have enough to do a couple of coats on here. And we're just going to paint this in. You can have your topper be any design that you want. You know, if you have an idea for a different kind of design for your topper, then go for that. But I think this is going to be a fun little topper here. Love this ornament surface. I just absolutely love it. So many things that you can do with it to paint it up with Christmas designs. This is available on my website. This is my my round ornament plaque. I also have a round ornament, a small ornament, but this is the plaque. This is the bigger one here. Okay, so we're going to get ready to start on our branches here, and I've just lightly drawn some lines in here. I may not follow them, I don't know, but they just kind of give me an idea. I don't want a lot of detail with these branches because they're not our focal point. But I do want to put a little bit of some color in there. So I'm going to grab some milk chocolate. Any brown that you have will be just fine. I want to lighten it up. That's pretty dark, with a little bit of warm beige. And we'll just create a little bit of a mix here for our branches. I'm going to continue with this flat brush that I started with and just grab some paint and mix it up. So I'm going to put a little moisture in my brush, grab some of the milk chocolate and some of the warm beige, and just create this a little bit lighter of a brown color. Just mix it up till it, you know, appeals to what you like. And then I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to be on the chisel edge of the brush. Zoom in just a little bit. I'm going to be on the chisel edge. That's the sharp edge. Not the flat edge, but right here on this edge. That's the chisel edge. And I'm just going to start laying in some branches in here and just bring them down. I want them to be, you know, substantial, especially coming from back here. Can make them a little bit thicker back here. We'll have some other branches coming off of it, but these will not, you know, have much detail to them because we're going to put our pine on here. We're going to make this a pine bough or whatever. Put lots of pine on it, so just create some rough idea of some branches. I'm going to come down here and put one in. Start it out kind of fat back here, and then let it just go. And I do want some branches here because I want the pine to come all the way to the back, the edge of the surface here. Now we are going to be putting a bird up here, so I think I'll make this branch a little bit more substantial and bring it across because I want to set a bird on it. So I want it to be big enough that when I put my bird on there, it's going to have some place to set. And let's see, I think we'll bring some of these down a little bit. Maybe a branch coming down this way, because we want all this to basically be filled with mostly pine. Let me add a little bit more back here for some opaque stuff. Now you can come in at this point and add some darkening on your branches, but you don't have to do a whole lot with that. So let's grab some burnt umber and stick it out on our palette. So just a little bit on here. Won't need much of this color. Alright, I'm just going to wipe out the excess paint out of my dirty brush here and grab some burnt umber. And then we're just going to put it in here like along an edge, just to create some darkness, a little bit of darkness. Again, I'm going to try and, do enough stuff on here that we won't see a lot of these branches at all, but, in case one of them is poking through, you want to have it looking like you want it to look. Bit of water. Now if you need to go to a smaller brush to do this, you certainly can, but I am just dirty brushing right into this burnt umber. These should be fairly quick. Don't take a lot of time to put tons of detail into them. Because you're just not going to see it, so you don't want to work so hard and then you won't see it. If at the end, when we get everything on here, we can see more of these branches, we can come back then, and the areas that we can see, we can shade and highlight. But there's no point in doing all of that hard work right now just to cover it up. So we are ready now to start creating our pine needles. Before we create our pine needles, I'm going to quickly apply a second coat up here on my gray and get it nice and opaque. Boy, I didn't get it mixed on my brush very well. And just get that all completed. There we go. Alright, so now we're ready to work on our pine needles. So let's grab some green paints. Alright, let's put out some black green. And I think I'll put out some leaf green. Leaf green, my favorite green. I try to use it anytime I'm using a green on something. So I'm going to put those two out just for now because I don't want my paint to dry before I can go into the next colors that I want to go into. Right, so I'm going to load with my dark green here and then just corner load into my light green. So it's like double loading, but that dark green is underneath there, underneath everything. So we're just going to start creating some lovely little pine needles here. And I don't want you to think too much about this, just begin pulling some into your limb that you created. Load with the dark, side load with the light, and just begin creating some fun pine here. You can definitely go to a smaller brush if a larger flat brush worries you a little bit. So fully load with the dark, corner load with the light, and we're just going to bring lots of pine in here. We're going to do several layers here, so don't worry about, really this is the underlaying of underlayer coat of the pine. So I want to make sure I have that dark color coming through as well. I want this to be a fairly fast project. I don't want to think too much about it. Our other elements are our focal points. This is the supporting cast right here, so we don't have to be overly concerned with it. When we go to put our top layer of pine on here, we will definitely go to a little bit smaller brush, but I want to bring this all the way back here. So see, back here we're not really seeing much of that branch, and I do want some of this on top here. Okay, because in the end our branch is not gonna have a whole lot seen on it. So we're gonna do the whole entire branches the same way, and really just be loose about it. Come out farther if you want, give some curve to your strokes if you want, just have some fun with just tapping basically this in there. So load, double load. I'm going to continue on, but I may go off camera and finish this so that it's not taking up a lot of camera time. We'll come back and we'll do our second layer on here. And now, one thing I do want to point out, just because your branch ends somewhere doesn't mean that's where your pine has to end. So and you know, I don't have a branch over here, but I want some pine coming off of it in that direction. So just, it's little dabs. I wanted my pine needles to be a little bit longer, so that's why I'm using a little bit bigger of a brush. But you know, if you don't want yours to be like this, then use a smaller brush. You can use a round brush to do this. Doesn't have to be exactly like mine. Put your spin on it and have fun. I'm going to bring this one out a little bit more. And just almost like pulling strokes, dabbing strokes. I'm kind of dabbing, but giving it just a slight little pull. Fresh paint is going to work best for this, so alright, and then back here I want it to be a little bit fuller coming out here. Bring some of that out and about. that's not looking too bad. I definitely want it to be a little fuller. So we have another layer that we're going to add on here. And that's why I didn't want you to give a whole lot of work to those branches, because we're not going to see a lot of it when we get done here. So we're going to add another layer on here of a lighter color. So let's get some lighter greens out. Alright, so I've got an extremely bright green here. Not sure how it will work, but I love this color. It's Margarita. And then I think I'm going to try Festive Green, because it's another bright color, but it's not super opaque. I don't think either one of these are crazy opaque. We're going to load the same way with both colors. I'm going to fully load with the Festive Green and then just go into that Margarita and put it on one side of my brush. Let's see how this is going to look. It might be too bright. I might want to change this up. But let's give it a shot. Let's see. Ooh, fun. Like it. I like it. So again, I'm using the same brush, but you do not have to use as large a brush as I'm using. And I'm just tapping on here very loosely. I don't want to cover up all my dark stuff. We're just getting something really fun on top of that darker color. If you get too much of this lighter color, you can come back with your darker mix and put some on top. That'll really give it some depth in here. So with this, I'm more dabbing. With the first layer, I was giving a little bit more of a touch and pull. This is definitely just dabbing. Just dabbing, 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 dabbing. How fun is this? Super fun, super fast. And this pine should go on very quickly. And your pine will look probably different than mine, because not everybody's brush stroke is the same. We all hold our brush different. We give different pressure to our brushes. But yours will be perfect. So don't worry about it. Just a few little dabs. Tippy dabs. Just touching down and lifting very quickly. Few more back here. So that gives us some really fun pine. Like I said, you can add as much in here as you want to, and cross over. I mean, this really is what's going to give it some fun stuff going on, is when you cross branches over the other ones. So don't be afraid to do that. We don't have to have our pine all just, you know, on its own. It can crisscross and, you know, bring it all together this way. This is where you can be a little bit more loose with your painting and just give your painting a little bit more character. A little bit more out here. Okay, so see, we can't see a whole lot of that branch stuff going on, so it's a good thing we didn't spend a whole lot of time on that. Okay, so just continue to tap stuff in there until you've got it the way that you like it. Definitely need a little more in here. Okay. Super fun, super easy, super, super, super. Alrighty. Now, if you want to add more detail to this, you can do some shading, like where one branch is over another one. I don't think I'm going to do that. I might do it later once I get a little more design on this, but for now, I'm just going to leave it like that. All right, we have our pine in. I think it looks great. I'm not going to do anything else to the pine till we get some more elements in here and see if I want to come in with a little bit lighter color or not. So now we're going to use this stencil here. I did create this stencil specifically for this design. I want to add some snowflakes in the background, some bigger ones. Now, you don't have to do this part. You can just leave it the spattered paint if you want, but I want to add some white snowflakes in here. So I'm going to put out some snow white paint, and I'm going to mostly use smaller snowflakes. Stencil brush, load it up, and then I'm just going to see where I want to put some fun little snowflakes on here. I'm going to tap these in, and it's okay if they go over the pine needles. You can put some back behind by simply keeping a damp brush handy. I'll show you. And if you get some on a pine needle but you want this to look behind, just remove the paint before it dries off of the pine needle. And it can look more like it is behind the snowflakes. But you can also do this before you even paint in your pine. I just never know exactly where everything's going to go, so I'm just going to wing it and throw some snowflakes in here. Put this big one up here. This is a beautiful snowflake on this stencil. You don't, like I said, you don't have to add snowflakes. Do what you want. I want some coming off of the edge. I think this is going to create some fun effects here, some drama. Load a little bit more paint in here and continue just using snowflakes throughout my design here. Okay, I probably won't put a whole lot on top until after I get some other elements in here, but I definitely want some kind of peeking out, you know, kind of back in the background, and just creating some fun use of this snowflake stencil. You can see your pine very easily, so you can, using your stencil brush, you can miss the pine needle altogether and just get a little peek of a snowflake going through there. I think I'll put a little bit more of that one in here as soon as I get it lined back up. Oops, stuck on my edge here. A little bit there. Let's put one off the edge here. I want another big one. Probably this one here. Down here on the bottom. And you know, this is all background stuff, so if it gets too bright, we can wash over it with some of our background color, and that will take those snowflakes down and make them not quite so bright. And let's put some up here. This is one of my favorite snowflake stencils that I've created. I really love the different snowflakes that I was able to create with this one. A lot of fun. Okay, let's put part of one down here. And I'm not giving solid coverage onto a lot of this. I'm trying to keep it a little bit more soft. So I haven't loaded my brush a ton. So just a little piece of one here. And And I think that's all I'm going to put on for now, because I have other elements that I'm putting on this background. So the next thing that I want to put on is the bird. Okay, so I want a chickadee bird up here. So I created this stencil here with this chickadee. So I can have my bird looking this direction or looking this direction. So I have to pick a branch for it to sit on, and I want it to be up close to the top. So, one of my snowflakes there bent. So I want him to be up here. Because I'm going to put some ornaments down in through here is my plan, to apply some ornaments down through here. Let me see if he would look better here. Okay, so at this point, if you're painting in by hand, you'll want to apply your line drawing on here. I've decided I'm going to put 2 chickadees on here. So I'm going to put one up here. And I'm going to take a piece of tape and tape off where the feet are. I want the feet to be less noticeable here. Okay, so I'm going to take some black and white paint and make a gray value. Now, if you prefer to just have a gray that's pre-mixed, I would go with a slate gray. That'd be a nice gray to put here, or a little bit darker. Well, slate gray is a little bit darker than gray sky. So, you know, you could do slate gray or gray sky, either one. Okay, so I'm going to tap my bird in here with my gray paint right up to the feet. I don't want to put the feet in. I'm going right over the pine that we created there. No problem with that. A nice good coat of this. I want to make sure it's got some nice coverage. Okay, so there's the base for our chickadee. I want one over here as well, but I want to flip over my stencil. So I'm going to clean my stencil so that when I flip it over, this wet paint does not get onto the other side. So I'm just taking a baby wipe and cleaning that off. I'll take a paper towel and dry it so it doesn't stick to my surface. Bring my surface back over here, and then we're going to paint the chickadee in on this side. Now, if you're painting in by hand, you're just going to paint them in with that gray. And I have the tape on the other side, so I won't be putting those feet in. I want to create the feet a little bit smaller than what they are there. So okay, so we've got a couple of chickadees on there. We're going to be using this to apply the next layer on the chickadee. I'm going to wipe my stencil off again, and we'll go ahead and put in our ornaments. Now, again, this is, if you're not using the stencil, then you'll want to paint them in by hand. So we're going to paint these in with the stencil so we can make this a much faster process here. So I've got my ornaments here. You can see I have this one overlapped. Well, this stencil will come with this blank here, so that when you paint in this one, you can paint that one in without getting paint on it if you're using the stencil. Okay, so if you have limited stencil brushes, I'm going to show you how to put this in. I didn't draw that one in very straight at all, so I'm going to adjust this. And so if you're just painting it in, you'll just draw it in and paint it. So I'm going to paint this one in first so I can show you how to block that one off. I am going to use, I think I'll try turn it over this way so it's not laying down towards my paint. I'm going to use a makeup sponge for this, and so we want definite Christmas colors here. I'm going to do yellow and blue and red, I think. So I'm going to do this one in with red. I'm going to use berry red for this one. So I've got my makeup sponge. They are not real absorbent, not like most sponges are. So you want to pull a little bit out and tap it and disperse it onto your sponge and to get the paint on there that way. Now I'm not going to worry about the topper. I'm going to come back and paint that in actually by hand. So I just want to line this up and I'm going to tap. So I can see right now my red is too transparent. So I'm going to take some black and white and mix some gray just right here on this sponge. I don't want it to be that dark. I want to mix a light gray color. And I want to undercoat with this color. So this would be more like a gray sky color. So just undercoat the whole thing. And we'll let that dry, then we'll be able to come back and put our red on top of it. I'm just going to go ahead and do that with all of my ornaments. I'm going to cut this off of the end with some scissors so I can mix some just gray without red in it. And I'm just going to undercoat all of my ornaments with this color. I want this one to be, let's see, let me turn my ornament straight up and down. That one looks crooked. So, whoop. Put this one here. And I just had mine drawn on here for you to show you how, if you were going to do it by hand, to get your line drawing on there. And we're just going to cover the whole area. And this would be gray sky if you're using a pre-mixed paint. Just use some gray sky. And then we'll go up here. And do this one. I'm going to block this one off. It's pretty dry. Lay that on there. Lay this here. And then go ahead and tap this one in, our undercoat. Gray, light gray or gray sky, that color is a great undercoat for almost any color. And if you've watched enough of my videos, you know why I use gray sky, especially for red, because it is the perfect color for undercoating red with. Okay, so let's erase some of these lines that I drew on here and didn't end up using. So we're just going to get those undercoated, let them dry, and then we can come back in with our regular paint. So I'm going to cut off the sponge. And I'll use this one for red, and then I'll have a separate sponge for my blue, and a separate sponge for my, this one needed to be right about there. So let me see if I can adjust that right there. It's going to be a bigger topper, but I think it will make it look much better. Okay. Alright, so, and you know, I can't always come back with my white eraser and very gently erase this layer of paint here. But I have to be careful, because if I rub too hard, I'll take my pine needles off. And I don't want to do that, but I would kind of like to take that little bit of reddish color off of there. Okay, that's good enough. So I straightened that up a little bit. I went ahead and just painted this one back in with gray. So everything is gray now. So let's get a first coat on our ornaments so they can be drying while we work on the bird. So I'm just going to line this up. Right to where I painted. And load my brush up with my red. This is berry red, and it will take 2 coats. So we're just going to apply a quick first coat. I'll try to stay off of the topper part, but if I get some on there, not a big deal. I'll come back and paint it with gray by hand. Okay, I think while this is wet, I'm going to go ahead and add my cranberry wine shading. This is wet on wet. Using the same sponge, I'm going to apply some of the cranberry wine just to one edge, and we'll just darken along one edge with this cranberry wine. Remember, it's not absorbent. The sponge is not absorbent. So I'm going to tap that in, walk it up a little bit. Okay, just give it a little bit of shading. We're going to come back and add more, but that's got our first layer on there. I'm going to go down to this one. And this one's going to be blue. So we're going to use, what color do we have here? Crisp blue. You could use bright blue as well. And I'll go ahead and put out some deep midnight blue, because that's the dark blue that we'll use with this one. Grab a new sponge, load it with your crisp blue, go right here to your ornament, line up your stencil, and tap your blue in there. I didn't clean my stencil from the red because I gave it plenty of time to dry on the stencil, so I don't have to worry about transferring that red onto my next ornament. Some nice coverage on here. Then I'm going to go into my dark, and we'll put a little bit of this down here. Dark blue, and just tap it. This is wet blending. We can come in and just do traditional floating, but this gets us started, especially if you want the shading color to come up onto the ornament quite a bit. And then our other ornament is going to be yellow, so we'll grab some yellow out. This is bright yellow, and we will also need antique gold. And this is where you will block in your blank piece. What did I do with it? Here it is. We're going to block this in. Oops, we're going to block it in over here on the red. Okay, then we'll lay this on here. And we'll grab a clean sponge, and we'll start with bright yellow. Bright yellow is pretty transparent color, so I'm going to mix a tiny little bit of antique gold with it to make it a little more opaque. You can mix some white with it too if you want. I'll just throw some white in there and get a little bit more opaque color here. So bright yellow, a little bit of white. This will give us a super bright yellow. You could use primary yellow as well on this. A little bit more yellow in there. And then we'll go with just some antique gold. This is just getting our first layers in here. Oops. There we go. And that's just going to get us a nice first layer on there. And then we can remove this and it's behind that one. We've got some beautiful ornaments started with our base coat in there and our first shading on there already. Super easy. Now if it didn't come out all the way, let it dry. This is not dry. And then just float a little bit of your, if it's next to the shading area, the shading color all the way out there. If it's just your base color, float some of your base color out in there, and it will cover up that little bit of gray line. So now we're going to move on to our back up to our birds and give those ornaments time to dry. Okay, let's put our next layer on our bird. So I've lined up my stencil. I'm going to use a stencil brush. You can still use a makeup sponge, totally up to you. And I'm going to take some black paint and we're going to tap this in. Make sure we're lined up here. I hope I did this right. I might have needed to paint the bird black and then tap on the gray, so we'll see, because the chest here should be white, mostly white, so I may have this backwards. Yep, so I've got this backwards. You know what I'm gonna have to do? Let me just show you how to fix these issues, because this should be all black. Let's see. Yep, we'll make it all black to begin with. Oh goodness, change that on my notes. Okay, we're gonna make our bird. Is that right? Let me think about this a second. Okay, we've got it okay here. I had to go get a picture of a chickadee and look at it. I've painted them before, but for some reason doing this, it just did not seem right. Okay, so out here in this area, I want to make this area white. So I am going to grab a little piece of a makeup sponge and put some white paint out. So I'll paint it black everywhere with the stencil. And that is some thick white, except for right here in the chest area. I want to put some white in there, and this is where I'm going to have to be careful that I don't put something where I don't want it. So I'm only going to bring it up to there, even though the white needs to come up a little bit farther. I'm going to scoot that over just a little bit so I can cover up all of my black, oops, so all of my black paint that I put on there. Okay. So we're going to keep that white because we're going to add some strokes in here of some white and gray. So now I need to clean my stencil, flip it over, and do that bird. Okay, so I did this one different than I did this one. So I'm going to do this one the way that I did this one. So we're not going to paint it in with gray totally. I want to line this up. And we're going to paint it in with white. Let me cut off one of my sponges here so I can use just white paint. Okay, so white paint, makeup sponge or stencil brush, so I'm just going to base this in with white. A couple of coats. Lift that up here just a little bit. Oops. Make sure I get all the tail. So I'm going to do a little bit more white. And then I'm going to grab a tiny little bit of black, if I can find some on my palette still. And kind of make a gray color. And I want to tap this in through here. And keep some white on one edge so that I can kind of blend it. We'll make it gray kind of through the middle of this, but white down here on the chest. So it's got a gray tint to it. gray in there. Tap it with a white edge and kind of blend it out. Wipe some of that paint off my sponge. Get a little bit more white here. Oops. And you can only do this while your paint is wet, so if it starts drying or getting tacky, be sure and get out of it. Mine's starting to get a little bit tacky, so I'm going to leave it there. It's mostly a light gray, white, lighter down here and everything. So then we'll let that dry, and we'll come back and put the other stencil on and paint with black. Now it's ready for us to add shading and highlighting and any stroke work that we want to go in there. We've established all of our elements on the bird, so it's much easier to go in and add those little strokes and details and finish it up. So now you can use a stencil brush, or you can use your makeup brush, your makeup sponge. I'm going to use a stencil brush because I want to have, the stencil brush will give me a little bit more control here. So I'm going to tap the black up through here and down through on the tail and the wings. The chest area, I want to keep that white. So I'm just going to tap this black in here. And a tiny bit more. Let's take a peek. It's looking pretty good. I need to move the stencil over just slightly up here at the top. And get the top of the head. We could also float that with some black, so it's not a big deal. Okay, so that looks much better on there. I like that. So you go with the white first, just a little bit of gray through the center, because that's where we need the gray, is in the wings. And so we are good now. We can start doing our shading and highlighting on that bird. We're ready on our ornaments to shade and highlight. So we're basically done with the stencil, but I may add these words in here somewhere, merry and bright, along in here. So I'm just going to set it aside. You can take it while your birds are drying and go ahead and clean it at your sink with a very soft toothbrush. Just put some hand sanitizer on there, rub it on with your hand, let it set for 15 seconds. Take a very soft toothbrush and all of that will come out. You can also do the same by using your stencil brush. You'll clean your stencil brush and your stencil at the same time. So those are just a few tips on how to clean your stencil. But if you're sitting at your paint table and you're ready to move on quickly, you can just take a baby wipe and remove the majority of the paint off until you can get it to your sink and clean it. So we are going to let these dry, and then we're going to start adding some detail on here. Okay, let's work on the chickadees. I think we'll do the topper probably up at the top, one of the last things, but let's work on our chickadees because they're not going to take us a whole lot of time to do. So I've got some white and some black on my palette. I'm also going to add a little bit of milk chocolate out here. I'm going to start by using a small round brush, and we're just going to stroke in a few little feathers. I'm going to start with some white, and we're going to make this area a little bit more white. Just add a few strokes in here, bring it up into the black area. Need a little bit of water in my paint here. I'm just using a number 1 round brush. Use whatever brush works for you. So I'm just going to stroke some. I want to bring it up into the black a little bit, so just create a fun little feathered look there. This stays black through here, but we can bring this white right through there. We're going to stroke some white on the chest. let's see, we're going to put just a little bit on the wings back here. We're going to do some more black and some gray back in here. But we do want a few white, and we'll come back and add some white on top. So we don't want to get, we don't have to get too much white back there on the feathers yet. Okay, let's come over here and do this one. And a little bit of white through here. We're going to bring that up to almost the beak. And all through here. Just letting the brush barely tickle across. My paint is thinned a little bit. And we'll put some along the chest here. And this is just straight Snow White. A little bit back here on the tail. And a little bit throughout the wing area, but we'll be adding some other colors in here, so this bird over here is a little bit lighter gray than that one, so I'm going to put a little more white in here because it's not showing up as well. I just want to make sure that that white is showing up. A little bit more water in my paint here. Okay, so that's with the white. I'm going to go down to a detail liner now. And I'm going to thin my black paint down a little bit with my detail liner. And then up here, we want to bring some of this black into this white. Just a little bit. Don't, that was a little bit too much right there. Our black area through here, we'll just stroke a little bit of black through here. Where we've already got the black laid in. We're just helping to intensify this color a little bit. And through our wings. The stencil is just a roadmap of where we need to go with our colors. We're going to put some gray in through there. And let's bring just a few strokes. This is all black down here in the front, so you can do just one bird on yours. I was just going to do one, so it's totally optional. Just put a few strokes of black in here for the wings and the tail feather. Okay, it's just a road map. Alright, so with the same brush, I'm going to mix the white and the black together and make a gray color. So I'm going to make like a medium, light to medium gray, depending on the color of your bird. And let's put some of this in through here at the very front of the chest here, right underneath that black, and then we'll pull some of this back here and into the wing. So this little black area right here, I'm going to put quite a bit over it because we've got black here, but not a ton like the stencil created. We want to see that black, so don't cover it all up. We're going to do a little bit of shading and highlighting on here in just a minute. This one won't take as much. We're also going to use this color on the beak real quick and paint the beak in. Right through here on the chest. And down through here. Down the back. I need to put some along the back up there. And a little bit on the tail feather. And then we're going to also do the beak. So this is that medium gray color, and let's paint in the beak. It's got a tiny little beak, so don't, it's kind of like a triangle right here. Okay, we'll do some shading on that in just a minute. Okay, so now we're ready to actually do some actual floating and shading on this. Okay, let's start adding some color onto the bird. Let's add some milk chocolate. We're just going to create a nice little washy color here. Make it light. We can always darken it. And we're going to put this along here and along the back. We'll do this one the same. That side needs to be a little bit darker. So we can go just a tad darker here. Okay, and sometimes this carries up into this area just a little bit, so you can add a little bit up in there if you would like to. I'm going to darken this side just a little bit. Zoom in. I like to try and keep both birds on camera here. Right back here is where I really want it to be dark. So, still keeping a very light mix washy color and just darken right there. We'll go ahead and do some white along the chest, and we'll smooth out our chest area. Just straight white. Okay. Let's take our black and shade a little bit on the beak. Now I have a 3/8 inch angle brush here. I'm going to do the lower part, the bottom part of the beak, and then go in and do a little line here. A little bit of shading at the very back next to the face, and then you just need a highlight on there. You can use some white, tiny little bit right along the front edge of the beak. I'm going to shade a little bit more back here. Okay, so this one kind of lost its eye, so I'm going to take my white. It's got a tiny bit of black in it, and I'd have to use my detail liner so I can get a little bit thinner line here. So see how that is got a rounded area right there? This one kind of lost it. I'm not really sure what that dot thing is right there, so we're going to create a rounded area there, and we'll paint in the black part, that maybe a little bit through here. I'm going to go ahead and pull a few black strokes through here. Let's take our black and finish off the top of the heads where we didn't quite get our paint out far enough. That could have been a chalk line. I'm not sure, that might be a chalk line. Nope, it's paint. So we want to go up and cover up that line. So we'll just float some black up there because it's just easiest to float some up there. Take that down just a little bit. Okay, then we'll dot a little highlight on the eye. Okay, I'm going to brighten up the little highlight on the beak here. And now it's up to you if you want to add more detail onto the wings with some shading and highlighting, like with some lamp black. You could shade a little bit. That's not coming off my brush at all. Actually, I think I'll take my detail liner here and thin my black down. Smooth out some of these lines here. Chickadee wings have very distinct kind of lines. So let's go over here. And we can just put some more into the tail if we need it. But very distinct lines here. Okay. Black and white are the main colors here. So just to kind of play around with it and thin some white here. And just create your bird however appeals to you. I'm going to put a little bit of white through here because right at the front of the chest it's pretty bright. So on this one we'll do a little bit right through here. If you know you're unsure, grab a photograph of a chickadee and just look at it and see where the lights and darks are on it, because that will help. Oops. Okay, they're not looking too bad. Let's shade back here on the body, and I think we'll be done with the body. Let's do a little bit of, oops, wrong side of my brush, a little bit of that gray that we mixed up. Might add a tiny bit more black to it to make it a little bit darker, and we'll shade right here. We don't want to do the whole front of the chest, we're just doing like the lower part where it goes underneath the tail and just bringing it onto the chest just a little bit. I think I want that to be just a touch darker, a little bit more black, and on this one get a little bit more black in there. it out with your finger, make it look nice and pretty. And they look pretty good. So let's add the feet on there. And the feet, we're just going to use some black. And I'm just going to create some little, you know, 3 little toes there that are sort of there, but sort of not. I don't like those. Those look weird. Try that again. Okay. Okay, you can give them a little bit of a highlight if you want with some white or some light gray. They're not going to be super noticeable, so you don't have to feel like you have to do a lot there. And then I am going to shade underneath them with a very sheer color of black. A little bit of shadow here under our bird. And this is black, but it's very, very thin down. Just creating a little shadow under that bird. Got a little bit into my white here, so just touch that up. And I think our 2 chickadees look cute as can be. They were super easy to paint. Okay, just a little bit of black, white, gray mix, and a little bit of milk chocolate. And there we go. We got some really cute chickadees. So let's work on our ornaments now. Let's work on the red ornament here. Let's grab our cranberry wine out. I'm going to put a little bit of the berry red out because I just want to wash some over that area. Now, when you use a makeup sponge, it can add a little bit of texture to your design. So if you're not wanting texture in yours, then just use a stencil brush or just paint it in by hand. I'm going to take our base color. I want to clean up the edge out here. I can still see a little bit of that gray, so I'm just taking the base color and going right along the edge of the ornament here. You can put your stencil back on here and do the same thing as well. So, alright, so that was just with our base color of berry red. So let's float some cranberry wine on here. I may have to darken this color a little bit. We're going to continue cleaning up that edge right there and just bring this cranberry wine over this way. The makeup sponge put down a nice little first layer on there, so as we float we don't have to put as much paint on the project. I want to add some really fun detail onto this ornament, but I want to get them all painted in first, and then we'll go back and add some fun stuff to them. I'm going to highlight on this one with Neon's Sizzling Pink. You could also use Fiery Red. Let's see if I'm going to like the pink, because I wanted these ornaments to really pop. And so I thought the Sizzling Pink would be fun on here. So I want it on the opposite side of where the shading is. Okay, so that's not showing up tons. While it's drying, I'm going to clean up on my topper here with the gray. Oops. just off my ornament, which I'm not doing very well. So let me try that again, because that is not straight. Okay, that looks a little bit better. Okay, we're going to shade on the topper. All the toppers will be done the same way, which you could just go all the way across and do them all at the same time. So I'm going to shade along the right side and a little bit right next to the ornament edge. I'm going to kind of touch that with my finger. Let's bring that all the way down to the ornament. It needs to set on there. You'll highlight with some white. We're going to add some details to these toppers here. And we need to create the wire that it hangs with. Okay, so grab my detail brush and we're going to do that gray mix. And now your wires can be a circle wire that's hooking over a limb, or it can just be a hook one. It's really whatever you want. I'm going to make a circle one, so it's going to go back behind that branch right there, and we'll see a little bit of it peeking right there. Okay, since I have this on my brush, I'm just going to go ahead and do all of them. So this one is coming up over that one and coming down here. Okay, we can come in and add some extra greenery in here if we need to. So this one's coming over that one, and we'll get a little peek of it connecting right there. Okay, those are super easy. I'm going to touch up my toppers here, get them all nice and cleaned up. This one over here got really big. I'm going to take that shading down a little bit there. I have to redo it because it was just a little bit bold for me. Alright, so let's just go ahead and finish out our toppers. I'm going to go to my angle brush here. I'm going to do that dark gray mix, black and white. And just make this subtle gray color. I'm going to go along the left sides, or the right sides, I'm sorry. Okay, let me do this one. Okay, I definitely want to repeat that, make it just a tiny bit darker. I want to put that dark color. I know this might be a little tricky, but right here, you can use your liner brush to do this, where it connects. Where it connects to the topper itself. So just a little dark color right there. And then we're going to highlight with white. So we'll go along the left side with some white. And then I'll use my liner brush with some white. And we'll put a little highlight up here. Okay, super easy. Now, while I have this white on my brush, I'm going to thin a little bit of white real quick. Some clean water. And this is optional, depends on how fancy you want your topper to be. I'm going to put some and you can make your toppers any style that you want. They can just be plain, they don't have to be go back across the top here. That white is really faded in there. And we'll put a little bit more on here. Do the outside edge here. The topper should take you no time at all to do. And I do want to float on top of those bumps on the dark side, so you can make your bumps. Ooh, I don't want that much paint, just a little bit. Okay, so that has the toppers done right there. Super easy. I'm going to put another highlight layer on my red one with this sizzling pink or fiery red, whichever one you would like to do. I'm going to take my finger and just kind of buff that. I think I'm going to make a little wash of my base color and put it on here and bring it up into that sizzling pink a little bit. Grab a mop brush and let's just mop blend them together. Not too bad there. Alright, let's go ahead and shade on our other ornaments so that we can have them done as well, and then we can add some little fancy details to our ornaments. Let's move to the yellow one. I'm going to take my antique gold. This was our shading color. I'll clean up down here because this is where my shading color is going to go. Go around my red one. I got out my fiery red to try on my red ornament, and I kind of liked it a little bit better. So you can go with, I'll put both options in the palette and you can go with whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and pick up my bright yellow and just kind of tap blend that into my shading while it's still wet and work it up. And then we're going to go into our bright color, which is a neon color. Let's see if I'm going to like this. It's going to be super bright. I wanted some really bright, fun stuff on these ornaments. You know, even though the chickadees are more traditional kind of stuff, I really wanted to play up these ornaments a little bit more. So that is a neon's, what color is it? Neon Scorching Yellow. Fun colors to use. I definitely will come back and repeat the shading and stuff on the yellow one. It's not quite dark enough for me. In the meantime, let's move down to the blue one, and we're going to start with our shading color down here, which is Deep Midnight Blue. If you are worried about losing your shape here, put your stencil on and just use it as a guide. I just want to make sure the keep sticking my hand in the yellow there. I just want to make sure that the gray stuff that we put underneath as an undercoat, that there's none of that showing. Okay, I'm going to wash off my brush. I'm going to go into my base color and put some of this in here. And wash off. I'm going to grab a little bit more of that Deep Midnight Blue here and wipe off, and I just want to blend these two a little bit right here where they kind of meet. And let them very gently blend a little bit more of the base color up this way. Keep your shape nice. I'm going to mop these two because they're very wet, and I'm really afraid getting my brush in there is just going to start lifting paint. I need to clean up the edge over here. Okay, I'm going to mop that. Okay, I'm going to wash my brush and go into our neon color. For this one is electric blue. See how this is going to work out on here. It might not be bright enough because it's very close to the same color as the base coat. So I'm not sure how well it will show up on here. So I may have to go with a different color for highlighting on this one. I need to clean up this edge here. That is really not looking very good right there. Okay, that looks better. Definitely need to add a little bit more shading on the bottom of this one. So that's basically what we're going to do here. I've gotten 2 shadings and 2 highlights on this one. So we're ready to decorate this one until we do our final deep shading and highlighting. So I'm going to go off camera and do these again, the same colors that I just did, the antique gold, the base coat of the bright yellow, and then my neon sizzling scorching yellow here, and then the colors we just did here, deep midnight blue, our crisp blue color, and then the neon color electric blue's not quite showing up there, so I'll have to figure that one out. I may use our color that we used in the background, but I'm going to go get a second layer on these so we can come back and get busy. So I'm working on this one here for the second coat, and I've pulled out my base coat, which is pretty gray color. It's a blue gray, so I'm going to add that neon color into it and try and create a little bit lighter color here to put on this ornament. Not really sure. That mix didn't work out super great, but it's got a little bit lighter there. I think what I'm going to have to do is take my base color and mix some white into it to get a lighter color. So I think that's what I'll do. I'm going to let that dry and take my base color and highlight with that. Okay, let's see if this lighter mix is going to work on here. This is the base coat with some white mixed in, just a little bit of white. Just kind of sneak up on that. Don't let it get too crazy. I'm going to grab just some of the base coat and tap that in there. Not too far down into the... Just going to very lightly tap blend this with my mop brush. When your mop brush gets full, just go clean it off. Don't let it fill up with paint. You'll just transfer it all over your design. Keep a dry brush handy so that you can dry it on a dry place. You'll clean it on a wet place, dry it on a dry place. Got a lot of moisture in it. Alright, we are going to start adding some nice little details to our ornaments. Now you can leave them just this color. If you're going to do that, I recommend that you do a white highlight over here on the light side and do a much darker highlight down here. on the lower part. I really feel like that's super dark, so I might have to blend some of my blue and midnight blue, my base coat and my midnight blue there to take that down. Alright, I want to bling up the ornaments a little bit. So on this one I'm going to take some gold, some Extreme Sheen 24 karat gold. You can use a metallic paint as well. And I've just kind of drawn in some areas that I want to paint. With this gold, now it's going to take a couple of coats to make a nice opaqueness on there. Widen this a little bit over here because I feel like I got it really wide over there on that side. And then down here. Alright, now I'm going to take my detail liner and thin a little bit of that gold down. And let me see how I drew this. Let's see if I can get it even close to what I drew on here. I'm going to come down this way. I'm going to make 2 lines this way. I'm going to make 2 lines this way. Okay. We're going to make some X's is what we're going to do. So, let's see what I did here. I started over here, and went here, and then over here, went down here. Go over to this side, and this will kind of go around the edge so we won't see it. I'm going to come back and repeat all these if I can, because I feel like it may need a second coat on there, but that first coat looks pretty darn good. Okay, that one looks super good. I like it. Okay, so that was on the blue one. Let's move up to the yellow one because I drew some lines on that one. Okay, so I think I'm just going to put gold, this 24 karat gold. Is that what it is? Yep. I think I'm just going to put it on all of the ornaments. So this one, very thick right there. Just follow your lines, and you can do any design that you want on your ornaments. And I'll probably repeat on that one. Once it gets dry, I will erase those graphite lines. And then for this one, I just want to do swirls on this one. So I'm really going to thin down my 24 karat gold. It's Extreme Sheens. And I'm just going to create some swirls on this one. And hopefully you'll be able to see these. I'm using a detail brush, a 10-0 liner, so use whatever brush that you like. Oh, that's a fat one. That's a fat little swirl. Gonna have some coming off the edge there. Maybe we'll just see a piece of this one. I have to thicken this one up because it's thinner than all the rest. Step on the tip of your brush, you get some nice lines that way. Make them all different sizes, they don't all have to be great big. And I think I'm going to put a little one here. And that looks pretty good. So these all need to get dry, and then you're going to want to apply 2 coats. Now you can do this in silver as well. I didn't have the silver that I wanted to use. I had sterling silver, but it's not quite the silver that I want to use. So you can do these in silver to kind of match your toppers. You can make your toppers gold by painting them with like a moon yellow, shading with an antique gold and a little bit of burnt umber, and highlighting with white. And they are super easy to create a gold topper. So we need to let those dry so I can erase any lines that are on there. I may apply a second coat, especially in this area on this one. I think the other 2 look pretty good. And then we're going to do our last final shading on those and highlighting. So let's go up to our topper. Now with our topper, okay, those ornaments look great, I think. All right, let's work on the topper up here. Now on the topper, I wanted it to be different as well. So I'm going to create a triangle right here that goes on each side of that indent right there. Okay, let's just create a fun little ornament here. All right, so I'm going to take my angle brush, and we're going to shade and highlight on this. We're going to use black and white. Those are the only 2 colors we're going to use. Then we may wash over this with some silver, as well as the can't even talk, the toppers on the ornaments down here. So I'm just going to mix a little bit of white and black to create one of our gray colors, just for our first shading color. It's a mid-value gray. I want to put this color inside. Now it's going to have to be darker to go over our background. So I'm going to, depends on your background color, how much gray you'll have to add into your mix. Let me spritz some water on my palette here. Okay, I'm going to take this along each one of these lines. So you'll just mix your shading color to how it will look on your base coat color that you mixed up and put on here. Okay, while I have this, I'm going to go along the outside edges. Grab a little bit of water. Just mixing a little bit more here along this edge. Okay, we're going to go inside here a little bit at the bottom, just a little bit down there. I'll put some along the top. Okay, and now we'll begin some highlighting on here. So that's just simple shading. We might go in here and add a little bit more darker color into some deep areas here. I'm going to erase my chalk lines. Make sure your paint is dry. Brush your paint away from your paint palette. Let's take some white and we'll highlight next to these. A little bit more paint on my, oh, got some black in there. Let's flip it over and do the other side of this V. This is a pretty soft float because I have water in my brush. I'm keeping this nice and soft so it's not a lot of paint, and I'm blending it with water. Put some at the bottom down here. You can keep this as simple as you would like. I'm going to wipe my brush off, get the moisture out, and just put a little bit of this in the centers here. You can keep it as simple as this that I have right here, or you can make it a little fancier. I'm going to have to put a little line along here so we can kind of tell that's got an edge there. Kind of lost its edge. This is all one piece, so we want it to connect. Okay, I'm going to go just a tiny bit darker and up at the very top of that with just a little tiny bit of black. So a little bit on my brush, then I wiped my brush on my paper towel to remove most of it. I've just got a tiny little bit here at the tip of my brush. I'll just put that up there at the very top. I might come down the edge. I really want this to look like it's a deep groove. So tippy toe of my brush, oops, like I'm lining it, which you probably could get a liner and do this as well, but when you do it with a brush that's got some water in it, you're creating a little bit of a float look, even though you're up on the tip of the brush. So let's put a little bit more highlight here. Go back over our highlights. We don't have to do the entire area, but we do need to brighten. Okay, again, I'll take what's left on my brush and just kind of dry brush it into those areas. Okay, we are going to float underneath this on the blue area, so we'll kind of clean that up a little bit. I want to create the look of some little metal dots on there. So I'm going to mix some white and black to make a dark gray. I need it to be a little thin, so you'll want to add some water to it, but not super thin. We want it to come off of our brush easily, but we don't want it to just fade away. A little bit lighter. I just want to create the look of some like little metal bumps. I'm just using a small round brush. I want to keep these the same amount on each side. Try and keep them close to the same size. Okay, I'm going to bring some along the bottom. Okay, I think that's all I'm going to do on there. And that was just with a small round brush. And we're going to take a detail liner and dip into our white. And we're going to dot each one of these. Little bitty teeny tiny dot of white. Little highlight. These dots are not very big, so let's not let them fill up the entire metal part. Okay, those need to dry. We're going to do one more shading on the outside edges with some black, and then we're going to shade around our elements here. And you can add more bling. I might add a little bling to some of my snowflakes. Alright, these should be dry now. So I'm just going to make a washy black. So I've got my brush is loaded with water. I put a little bit of black on the corner and blended it with the water. So that makes a nice washy color. Keeps it sheer, and we don't have to worry about it going on here too bold and taking over anything. Okay, now, if you want the topper to have a little bit more bling to it, and these toppers down here too, which I think I might, sterling silver. I have another silver. I like it a little bit better. It's just silver, extreme sheen. Let's see if I have enough in the bottle to I just need to make a wash. Okay. I didn't think that I had enough, so I wasn't going to use this color. So for the topper, we'll just make a quick little wash of this color. Use my clean water to thin this. This is just going to give a little shine to this topper, but it won't take away from anything we've already done. It'll just kind of bling it up. And let's see if I can work this small brush to do these down here as well. This is a big brush. You might want to go to a smaller one. Just put a little bit on there. Whew. Definitely should go to a smaller brush there. We'll put a little bit of this washy stuff up on the wire. Or a lot of washy stuff. That was a lot. Okay, that's you'll be able to see the bling in the light. Now if that takes down any of your shading and highlight, if you put it on too thick, go back and refloat that soft black over to the side. This one I feel like it took a little bit down, but okay, let's shade around some of our elements. I'm going to get my deep midnight blue out. We're going to go underneath that topper with a little float of this color. I'm using this flat brush here, but you can go to an angle brush if that's what you prefer. Mop that a little bit, kind of smooth it out. Come back and repeat that, and I stuck my hand right in the gold part. Now I want to do this down here as well. I think I'm going to grab my angle brush because I want a little bit more control here. I'm going to put this around our ornaments. This is optional stuff. We still need to shade on our ornaments. So just give a little shadow onto the background and the greenery and all that stuff. Okay, because we did up here underneath the birds with some black. Wide angle out so you can see the whole thing. So that kind of set all of that. So the last thing that well, two things left to do. One, we want to shade to separate or shade on the bottom of our ornaments a little bit. So we're going to take our shading colors. This one I think is okay. It's pretty good. And that one, it's the gold one that I need a little bit more shading with, and I think I'm going to put some burnt umber out and darken that, and then we're going to highlight, add a brighter little highlight on there. So I'm going to mix some antique gold, and a little bit of burnt umber. Grab some water, get that a little bit sheer. I want nice sheer paint here, and we're going to, nope, needs more burnt umber. It's not showing up. A little bit more burnt umber, and we'll go around this ornament and put a little bit darker at the bottom. And grab my mop brush. I'm going to scoot that out just a little bit. It might look better with just plain burnt umber. And let's take some white, and we're going to highlight over here. Here and here. Repeat if you need to. And you can do a teeny tiny little reflective light out here if you feel like you need it. I'm not sure that one needs it. Maybe just a little bit right through there. I want to keep it narrow. That's just a little reflective light. Okay. I feel like that yellow one just doesn't quite sparkle like the other ones. Okay. I'm just going to leave that there. I am going to brighten up my white on my ornament toppers, and then we're going to do a little if you want to add some bling onto your snowflakes, you can do that to bring them forward. I think I want to add a little bit of gold onto our limbs. Carry some of that gold around. Oh, that's a lot of gold. We don't need quite that much. So let me remove that. You just want a little bit of gold. Don't get carried away. So just a few little tiny little strokes. Just kind of bounce around the painting a little bit. I'm using that washed gold, so I'm just kind of dabbing a little bit. This will only catch the light every now and then and get a little bit of reflection in there. We can mix silver and gold together, you guys. It doesn't have to be one or the other. Just have some fun creating and doing that. So the last thing I want to do is shade around the outside. Now you can add some bling onto your snowflakes with some Glamour Dust Ice Crystal. I normally do that anytime that I do snowflakes, but since I added gold back in the pine and we've got gold and silver going on this, I'm not going to add the Glamour Dust. Okay, let's do a little bit of shading along the outside edge. So I want to grab a really large brush for that. Okay, so I've got a large flat brush. I have it loaded with water. We're going to side load, this is a 1 inch, into our Deep Midnight and just create a nice wet color of this. Tap my paper towel. I always tap my paper towel, get the excess stuff off. I want a little bit more paint in there. And we're just going to go around the outside edge of this entire surface. And just kind of add a nice finishing touch to this. It's going to help bring your eye in. This is the color we used underneath our topper here. And you can repeat this if it's not dark enough the first time. But I think that looks pretty good there. So I'll let it dry and decide if I want to add a second float around the outer edge of that. But what a fun project. I think this is going to be a fast one for you. It always takes me longer to do it the first time because I'm designing it as I go. But once I figure out my design for it, the next time I paint this should go just incredibly fast. So I love all the blingity bling 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 on this. The gold, the silver at the top, yes, love it, and the gold that we put in all of the pine. You can see it reflecting in the light. How fun is that, you guys? This was such a super fun project. Again, you can get the surface and the stencil that I used on my website, lonnalamb.com. And I thoroughly enjoyed creating this with you. I've had this in my mind to do for a while, So I'm glad that I finally got to sit down and paint it up for you. So that is going to be it for this project. Let's see, I think I am going to title this particular project The Beauty of Christmas. I just think it represents Christmas or winter with the chickadees. You could absolutely put some snow on those pine back in there, because we do have snowflakes going on in the background, so you could add a little snow onto the pine as well, and that would look gorgeous. I wanted to keep it more green and the bright colors of the pine. So there we have it, the beauty of Christmas. So thank you so much for painting with me, everybody. Give me a thumbs up. Please like, please share, please comment. It all helps my YouTube channel grow. I appreciate every single one of you, and I cannot wait to see you on the next one, everybody. Bye-bye. Okay, I did want to come back in and add a few of our pine strokes coming over this. So I'm going to load my brush up, and we want to have a few that are maybe peeking, coming over some of this stuff here. So we're going to do our mix, make it look like they're kind of, you know, tucked in to the trees there, not just sitting on top of the trees. So just a few of these strokes like we did before. You can do as little or as much as you want. I also want to put a couple, maybe we don't even need the feet on the birds. We can bring some of these things tucked in around our birds. See, the birds are going this way, so you wouldn't necessarily have to worry too much about those feet. Now, if this is a step that you don't want to do, you don't like it, you think it's just too much, then you don't have to do it. This is definitely an after it's all done kind of thing. And let's put a little bit coming up here. And we won't really have too much there. Now where it hooks onto the limb, we want to make sure we've got some good stuff coming out there, so we might want to beef that up a little bit. Alright, I'm going to wipe off and get my two lighter colors that we put on here, and we'll come in and add, oops, wrong direction, add some of this on here. And it's another day of painting for me, so different day than when I painted this, so I'm sure my strokes will not match, but I think it's going to look great. Put a few here, a couple coming out here, around the bird a little bit, and then if you need to go back and do your shading under your bird, you can do that. Just add those little touches in there that kind of tucks them like they're more hanging into the tree. And then we'll add a little bit of gold in those areas. Your 24 karat gold. We'll just go in and add just a few little gold strokes. And then again, if you need to let's put some here. If you need to do any shading on them, you can do that. I think on this one here, I'm going to add just too much water in my brush there. Just dark ones. A couple of dark ones. Or maybe not. Okay. I might do a little bit of shading around this one here because it's coming over that pretty darn good. So I want to take some black to do that. Some black or the blue that we used, which is Deep Midnight Blue. And we'll just put a little bit of that Deep Midnight Blue in here. I definitely want to go around the birds here, not on the birds. Although a little bit of that blue on the birds would be, don't want it on that one because that one's coming up over the bird. Okay, I'm really going to thin this down with some water. Make sure I got all the green paint out of my brush. Feels like there's green in it. So working just a small amount into my brush. And we'll put just a little bit of a shadow there. And a little bit here. And that will kind of help bring all that down. So we kind of covered over here our highlight edge on that one, but it's okay. So again, you can do as little or as much of that as you would like. I feel like we need to have a little more fullness here since it's really going behind that there. So I'll just beef that up a little bit with our first two colors. Then we go into our two light colors. Put a little bit of that on top. And then you can add some gold on there if you want to. That's pretty wet, so I think I'll leave the gold off, but I need to put some here. I see I forgot that area. And then just look at it and see if it needs anything anywhere. This is your opportunity to really, you know, make it shine. But I think that will do it right there. I'm liking how that looks now, and we're going to call this one a done project. So thank you so much for painting with me, everybody. I hope that you have enjoyed this one. Please give me a thumbs up, comment, like, and share my videos. That really helps me grow in the YouTube algorithm, and so I appreciate every single one of you, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye, everybody.